I was guessing you were dressed up as Santa Claus as well. Huh?
What's the saying? No padding required.
Good. And we know Scott Chen's decorated as our favorite elf. So.
Hi, Lisa and David. Good evening.
Forgot we were muted.
I know. Hey, Raj, we were muted and looking at something.
It's all very confusing because we're in the same room.
I know. Is that your holiday jacket, David?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Looks good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is red is the theme?
Is it? What did you say? Is it a leadership? I don't know. Lisa's kind of wearing purple.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm wearing our standard purple.
She got with the leadership techniques color instead of with the holiday spirit.
Yeah.
But you might have missed before. This sweater has multiple purposes.
Yeah. Wow. It's great. It's looking great.
New England Patriots.
There's one emblem for each world championship. I have everybody muted, so you know nobody can jump on and go. Well, you could. All you got to do is press your space bar.
All right.
Feel free to unmute and interrupt Lisa at any time.
Kathy Myers joined us. Hey, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Nice to see
Hi,
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine. Hope you're having a good holiday.
Saving me a seat at the back table, right?
That's right.
How you doing? You feeling good?
I am. Just got my haircut, so I'm feeling even better before they shut everything down again.
We have speakers. Don't we get to sit at the front table tonight?
Yeah,
We get to sit at the big people's table.
that's true.
We have to behave ourselves and stuff.
Yeah. All right. Lots of names I recognize. Excellent, excellent, excellent. 2 minutes to launch time. 2 minutes to launch time.
Lisa, I don't know if I remember if I, I don't know if I said congratulations to you and David. I remember seeing something you got awarded some on the LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah, ATP, Authorized Training Partners. Thank you very much.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big deal now with the PMI to be an ATP. So we
Wonderful.
were in the first group that got certified, and it's pretty exciting. Thanks, Raj. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Just looking at all the people joining that we know. I miss seeing everyone in person. Jim Snyder Day, you think it's the one we know? We know a Jim Snyder up in Pennsylvania. Yeah, we know one here too. Ah. Oh, lots of friendly faces. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right. You're whistling Christmas songs.
Okay, time on deck, 7:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the PMI Montgomery County Chapter's December monthly virtual meeting. This will probably be our last meeting of the calendar year, but we look forward to coming back bigger and better than ever in 2021. We will be recording this session for our chapter's YouTube channel. So if that's an issue, feel free to opt out. Screen share will be shared, so shouldn't be an invasion of privacy at all. Mr. Geis couldn't be here this evening, but he sends everyone holiday wishes. Our experiment of being at Normandy Farm, September, October, and November was successful and healthy. We didn't have any reported cases from our events, averaged about 20 to 25 people there. It was good to support the restaurant. The restaurant's going to need everyone in the community support to survive through the winter. They're already at about a 75% loss, so keep them in mind for your next takeout meal at home. An update on our election. We extended the nomination window, and we can successfully report that we have all 4 positions with at least 1 nomination, so we're good to go for next year. PMI may send out an automated election, even though it's, vote for this one person or don't vote for this one person. We're happy to have back Mr. Gene Edry and Miss Ruby Bradley Kane returning as our Vice President of Finance and Vice President of Programs, respectively. And we look forward to bringing on 2 new board members for education certification and special projects. And we thank our prior special projects VP, Mr. Jim Steckel, who gave us 2 terms and 4 years of dedication, and then Mr. Arun Kumar, who gave us the last 2 years for our VP of Education. Our January 2021 speaker has already been set, so that first Wednesday of January, that'll be on Zoom as well. The President and CEO of the Make-A-Wish Mid-Atlantic chapter, Ms. Leslie Creedon, will be taking us through the organization and what goes into making a wish. Each wish is temporary in nature, so it's its own mini project in a way. And you'd be surprised at how many twists and turns wishes take before they finally come to fruition for the wish kids who are potentially looking at their last year of life. So we're looking forward to that. The Project Management Day of Service will be virtual this year on a Saturday in February. It doesn't look like Beth May is on, but they're accepting registrations for project managers as well as nonprofits, and they're still looking for help on their project management office that helps run the event. I think a lot of our chapter members have volunteered in their 6-year history and gotten a lot out of it. Helping nonprofits with their project management and business analyst needs is important. And it's a great event that can give you new relationships that last for life. So go to pmforchange.org and look at your schedule. And if you can throw in a whole day of Zooming that day, they'd love to have you. Our education partners are still in business just as we are and doing amazing things. I think they've all adapted well to the virtual environment. Lisa and David that we have with us tonight, Carl Pritchard, Laura Bernard of PMO Strategies, are friends with the Continuing Education Department at Montgomery College, Mr. Joe Liani and project management experts, Lee Lampert, who presented last month in his consulting group, as well as the Academy leadership team. So most medium to large companies are still offering a couple $1,000s a year for training and education for their employees. So don't let it go to waste, and consider enlightening yourself and getting ready for another certification or another professional step in your career. And we're happy tonight to have the leadership techniques team of Ms. Lisa Hammer and Mr. David Newman with us tonight. They chipped in on short notice, so we're always amazed at their agile practices and flexibility. They've recently been acknowledged as authorized training partners by PMI. So many people teach project management and PMBOK, but do they do it to the rigor and expertise that PMI expects? And that's where that authorized training partner designation is really coming in. So the fact that they got that shows that PMI believes in them. A few years back, they were authorized PMI Seminars World instructors. PMI Seminars World, when we used to have big conferences and events, it's since turned to virtual, but those are all the PMI endorsed speakers. So they're ready. They've gotten blessed by PMI twice now. Between the two of them, they hold 9 valid PM related certifications. Lisa may need to catch up to David a little bit on those, but between the two of them, number's still 9.
I run the business. He does the
That's
education.
pretty awesome.
One of the reasons why Ms. Hammer may not have as much time to study is she's also a current board member of the PMI Baltimore chapter,
That's right.
running their programs and bringing in speakers as high quality as they are themselves. And Mr. Newman is the #1 fan of the 6-time Super Bowl champion New England Patriots, only rivaled by the 6-time champion Pittsburgh Steelers, who just won a strange game tonight. So
They were on this afternoon.
Oh, they were. They won. All
Ravens.
right. Good. Cool. They're
So-
undefeated this season.
we look forward to a great presentation, and we'll turn the floor over to you.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks so much, Matt. We appreciate you pulling everyone together, and we absolutely appreciate all of you spending your evening with us. We are excited to share. Let me just mention one thing. We're going to ask you a couple of things throughout the session, and we're just going to ask you to go over to the chat and chat in your answers. So be familiar with that. On most screens, it's towards the bottom of your screen. And don't chat to the presenter privately, because I'm not listed as a presenter. So just chat to everyone or to Lisa Hammer separately. Okay. And that's it. So we're excited. Let's go ahead and get started.
All right. You see my slides, right?
Yep.
Oh, good.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.
As if we needed more New England. right,
Yes,
Dave?
more New England. Can you really ever get too much? I don't think so. Well, listen, everybody, we start with this quote. Most of us, I think, have heard and are very, very familiar with the first part of that quote. Ask not, what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. It's the second part of it that we found interesting, and we decided to add it to this presentation. Ask not to the rest of the world what America can do for you, but ask what together we can do for the world. And that is how Lisa and I see servant leadership. It's how can we together serve the project? How can we together serve the organization? And it's really exciting. I was just thinking as Matt was introducing us, and thanks, Matt, for that recognition of the 6-time world champion New England Patriots. But anyway, when we first started our business, several years ago now, I told Lisa the one thing I don't mind, I love, in fact, volunteering, to do PMI dinner presentations, but I never wanted to do PMI Montgomery County, because this was our home. This is where we hang out. We like being with you guys. And so I never wanted to present here. We did end up presenting here a few years ago, and it's, it's always awesome. So anyway, servant leadership, it's all about all of us working together. And we want to mention, it's pretty exciting times. We are now teaching the new material for the new PMP certification exam starting in January. And the thing about it is, one of the things that's being said a lot now, especially as the PMI adopts disciplined agile, is context counts, right? And stakeholder engagement, which servant leadership is really part of that. Servant leadership is a great way to engage our key stakeholders, our team. Well, stakeholder engagement went from being a part of communication to being its own knowledge area, its own chapter, and then it became chapter 13 in our beloved PMBOK Guide 6. It's never very far from me. I can always reach it. And you know where it is now? You know where it is now? It's chapter 1, number 1, topic 1. And you know what lesson 1, topic 1 is under stakeholder engagement? Diversity and inclusion. So here we are. We have to understand that our teams are operating within the context of our environment, right? We are now in the pandemic environment, so we have special stress associated with that. And we are living in a country that is crying out for racial equality and social justice. And those things are part of our job. They are our job. Diversity and inclusion, job 1. And so part of servant leadership is serving our teams and proactively looking for seeds of discontent, right? And finding those places where we can start to help people move past some of these conflicts and differences at the personal level, at the people-to-people level, and start solving problems from the bottom up. So it's really exciting times to be associated with project management and understand that we have the ability to make such a difference.
So servant leadership, it's not something we heard about many, many years ago, although it's been around forever. But Dave, you've been in the workplace since the 70s,
Since
80s.
dirt was invented, yes.
Well, back then we didn't talk about servant leadership, right? Servant leadership.
Nobody ever mentioned it to me, though.
Right. We definitely had different kinds of leadership. But servant leadership, it's a business philosophy. And it really emphasizes the act of the leader, such as a manager, a supervisor, whatever, as focusing on the growth and development of their employees and ensuring that they are successful. As we all know, why do employees leave their job? They leave their job because of their manager. And it could be because of, different reasons. It's not money. People think that someone leaves their job for money. Nobody leaves their job for money anymore. People leave their jobs because they don't feel valued. They don't feel appreciated. A servant leader really is focusing on growing and developing their employees. And by doing so, actually the leader succeeds when their staff does. So in a business team, a servant leader can not only help employees to achieve and grow, but it also benefits the leader and it benefits the company as a whole.
All right, so we first heard about servant leadership from Robert Greenleaf, who wrote the essay, The Servant as Leader. And, the quote is here, the servant leader is servant first. And, you can catch Robert Greenleaf on YouTube. He's still around in that context. He's not still around, really. But one of the things he said about the difference between servant leaders and others are why we come to leadership in the first place, how we come about it. And I'm sure that we're all familiar with leaders who are in those positions because they seek wealth or power or control or whatever it is. And we're not going to say whether that's good or bad or otherwise, but it's not what servant leadership is all about. Servant leadership comes from a place within us where we want to help other people, where the key to us is, will they be better off as a result of having worked with us? And will they themselves want to become servant leaders? And, it's really a time of optimism for me as I've been thinking about that. I'm about to turn 65 in a month.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Lisa's way younger than me. But, when you turn 65, those of you who aren't there yet, you start thinking about different things, right? And Lisa mentioned, I've been in the workplace a while, and I've seen a lot of change in the workplace. And when you realize what's happening now, even in the last 10 years, since Lisa and I have just been teaching and watching the demographics of the people that come to our class, the age, the colors, the genders, is much more diverse groups coming through leadership training now than was there 10 years ago. And those folks are in leadership positions. And we've been teaching soft skills for 10 years now. And a lot of those people are in leadership positions. And I was thinking today, I've always said, Lisa and I are frontline leadership trainers, project managers, frontline leaders. We're not executive coaches. We don't teach CEOs. But you know what? I was thinking today, we have taught some CEOs.
Plenty of them.
people, I mean, well, we've worked directly with many CEOs now, but we've worked with people that 10 years ago were at the beginnings of their leadership journey that are now in senior leadership positions. And the exciting thing about that is that industry is changing, leadership is changing. So the way it was 20 and 30 and 40 years ago is not the way it's going to be, 10, 15 years from now. It's not even the way it is now. It's not the way it's going to be a couple years from now. The millennial generation is dominant in the workforce, and thank goodness they've learned a different style of leadership than command and control and management by intimidation, right? So we're seeing the changes in the workforce and very, very optimistic about the way things are going to move forward in terms of servant leadership and different leadership styles that are better for people, that are better for organizations. Statistically proven that these what are called transformational leadership styles, as opposed to transactional leadership styles, both are necessary in order to produce products and services. But servant leadership and these situational leadership styles lead to better shareholder response, better HR metrics, lower turnover. So they're good all around. And the workforce is changing.
And before Dave goes on, I just want to remind all of you, you all know us. We don't mind interruptions. If you have a question, throw it into the chat and we'll answer them as we see fit. So don't wait till the very end. If you have a question, just throw it into the chat. Don't use Q&A, just throw it in chat. All right, so let's talk a little bit about these books, Dave.
So James C. Hunter is another author. So Robert Greenleaf, the essays that he wrote are the originals, but they're very academic. And so if you like reading academic essays, have a blast. James C. Hunter's books are more story-ish, and they are stories. And so in some ways easier to read and a little more fun. And so the original one is on the left there, The Servant, A Simple Story About the True Essence of Leadership. All three books are great. We highly recommend them. But we're going to let Jim Hunter speak for himself. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, if you are looking for a book on leadership, servant leadership, the one on the left, we really do recommend. The Servant by James C. Hunter. It's a little bit, it has some religious overtones, undertones, lots of tones, but he tells some very interesting stories, and it really is a very, very easy read. Quick question, was there a single event which fostered the rise of this style of leadership, or was it just gradual?
It's been, it's really interesting because servant leadership is one of the original leadership styles. It goes all the way back to ancient China, ancient Greece, ancient Romans. Christianity is always given as an example. But the current revolution or evolution in servant leadership, it didn't catch up. Robert Greenleaf wrote that essay in the 70s, and I started in the workforce. I got out of the Army in 77, started in the workforce, and I didn't hear anything about that kind of stuff. And so it got very, very popularized, I think, like in the 90s or so, when people started realizing that that people had options, that the best people are going to leave and go someplace where they're going to be treated nicely. But it really took off after Agile, because Agile points right at servant leadership and says, you know what? I mean, think about when the Agile Manifesto came out in 2001, and the Agile folks said, in Scrum teams, we don't have project managers. We don't need project managers. We don't want project managers because project managers are not servant leaders, and we want servant leaders. And that's when it exploded. And, you know, just for the record, the reality of that was, as I was a classically trained project manager in the 90s, and I was trained to be a servant leader as well. So it was, I don't agree with that Dr. Sutherland's view that project managers are not servant leaders, but that was the Scrum perspective. It has been, it's changed, it's modified over the years. And of course, now within the PMI, we have the disciplined agile delivery approach where we certainly do have project managers involved in leading agile projects. And
Well,
Scrum
let's hear what
projects.
James C. Hunter has to say.
Fine, we'll let somebody else talk.
I mean, servant leadership is exploding all over the world. I mean, it's been around for a couple thousand years. Places like Syria, Iraq, Iran. I mean, people are so tired of command and control dictators, you know, and it's been coming in our country for, 40 years, servant leadership. But in terms of the interest, I mean, some of the greatest organizations on the planet are now practicing servant leadership. And I'll tell you something else that's driving it is young people, the millennials. They just don't tolerate lousy leaders for long. They just don't. The best and the brightest, they'll pack up their bags and drive across the country and go to work for Google. They'll find an organization that gets it. The mediocre ones will hang around, but the best and the brightest expect a lot more from their leaders. And do it or else isn't near good enough. So consequently, a lot of HR people and HR suites across the country are recognizing that we can't just, having good managers isn't good enough anymore. People who can plan and budget and problem solve and organize and read balance sheets. I mean, we can send you to class and teach you that. We need people who know how to inspire and influence people. People who can get people to own the mission, create excellence in an organization. Who can do that? And get people to feel good about the mission and want to stay and contribute and be the best they can be. And how you get people from the neck up. That's the whole challenge of leadership. We can hire anybody to get people from the neck down, hands and legs and backs. Charitable giving country in the world by far, the United States, and you wonder, why do people give? And really it's for some selfish reason. We feel good when we do that. We feel good. I think, and it's also one of the great qualities I see of servant leaders, that the great servant leaders I know tend to be joyful people. I mean, they know that they are aligned with, as Stephen Covey used to say, true north. I mean, and I think my opinion is that God wires that in us, that's part of being created in His image. And I think it can get distorted and lost in this fallen world, but I think deep down, when we are aligned and serving and identifying and meeting the needs of people who've been entrusted to our care, we feel good about that. We feel aligned. We feel we have purpose.
Well, one of the things that James C. Hunter just talked a little bit about is volunteerism and the reason we do it. As all of you know, I'm sure, PMI, aside from Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, the rest of PMI is a volunteer organization. And it would not be possible to do things like this event tonight or any of the events that Montgomery County puts on if it wasn't for volunteers. And why do the people that are on the board volunteer? Because they want to give back, they want to, and they appreciate the opportunity. And we can't thank them enough. I mean, it's amazing, really, when you look at all these organizations that PMI has and that many other nonprofits have around the world that are just staffed entirely by volunteers. And we feel good when we are able to help somebody. When Dave and I started our company, we decided we needed to have a mission statement. And we said, well, we want to make the world a better place. And, we said to a couple of people, what do you think? Is that, pushing it? And they said, no, everybody can make the world a better place. And that's absolutely true. You don't have to be the biggest and the most powerful to make the world a better place. You can do it one step at a time. So a couple of authors you've heard of, Ken Blanchard, of course, the 1 Minute Manager. He said leadership is an influence process. And then John Maxwell, another leadership guru, said that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And what Dave had said earlier, do you leave things better than when you found them? That's really the true answer to anything you do. If you're working with a team, if you're helping a neighbor, when you're done, are things a little bit better than when you started? One of the folks that we really look to as a servant leader is Mahatma Gandhi. And, talking about sharing the power, he said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Why don't, and I'd like you to go to chat with this question, why don't we like to share the power as project managers? Go ahead and put in your chat, why don't we like to share power with others on our team? Oh, we'll wait.
We have 3 hours.
No, we don't. Calm down. They're worried about the results. Absolutely. Increases risk and competition, loss of control. Don't think we like to share. Threaten that they'll get credit and will be looked at as expendable. Control, quality, different opinions as to the right approach. Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely great comments. So it's true. One of the best and brightest managers I ever had when I was coming up, what power? Most PMs don't have power. That's true. One of the best managers I ever had when I was coming up through the ranks said to me, hire people smarter than yourself. And when I was early in my career, I didn't think that I could do that. I thought that, well, if I do that, I'll be replaced, just like was mentioned in the comments just now. But you know what? If you hire the best and the brightest, it helps you. It lets you grow. So for some leaders, learning to share power is really one of the hardest obstacles that they face, because leaders are supposed to have a sense of power and use it when they can. But when you are a servant leader, you know that when you share your power with your employees, when you learn to be empathetic, when you share successes with them, they in turn are going to gain more power. And in the end, they really will become a better leader. So, it goes along with delegating. Why don't we delegate? And a lot of the answers you put in there are the same, because we won't get it done the way we want. It won't be as good. It won't be as quick. But we need to do these things to help people grow. And I'm going to say this now, and I think Dave will say this a couple more times. We don't want you to mix up servant leadership with lax leadership. There's nothing lax about it. Servant leadership doesn't mean you go easy on people. It doesn't mean that at all. You still have responsibilities.
Yeah. Absolutely. Did you want me to take off from there? Absolutely. We're gonna talk about that. So that one of the things that James Hunter talks about in his book is the shifting of paradigms. And so when we think about, a lot of the leadership sort of succession learning in this country, and you talk about this a lot, right? That gap in training.
Oh my gosh, yeah. SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, they did a study about a year ago. It came out, and it said that the average age that we put people into leadership positions is 35. The average age we send people to leadership training is 46. So we have more than a 10-year gap of when we put people into a leadership position and when we actually train them. And the whole training thing is really interesting. I mean, of course, we're trainers. We're not saying that just because we're trainers, but I will tell you, we were working with a company, an international company. One of our clients, they have offices all over the world. You know them very well. I won't name names, but we were doing agile training with them. And we'd been up there many times, up there, New York, Florida, in different offices. And one day I said to them, we're doing a lot of soft skills training on servant leadership, emotional intelligence. And she said, our leadership doesn't approve of any soft skill training whatsoever. They don't think it's necessary. They will let us get technical training, but they won't do soft skills training. And that changed my whole opinion of that organization, because that's a travesty to think that you won't be helping people with how to be a better leader, how to serve their teams better, and just think they'll learn it on their own. So it is surprising.
So what happened over the years because of that gap is that people learn management from their managers. And a lot of that goes all the way back to World War II and people being trained in the military. Not that the military does bad leadership training, it doesn't. But a lot of people learn learn leadership as a sort of a command and control style structure. And so, we show the rankings here from the Army. And one time I said I show those rankings because those are the ones I'm familiar with. And somebody in class said, well, those are the right ones. So I don't know who's in the audience tonight. So hopefully I didn't just insult anybody.
You probably did.
Yeah. I hope there's no majors out there either. Anyway, so, the old paradigm is it starts at the top and then it comes down all the way through to grunts, which is where I was for 3 years. And then that's who, communicates with the enemy, right? So if you translate that to industry, we have CEOs at the top, and then down through middle management, and then to the employees, the front-facing people, and then the customers. And if you compare the paradigms then, well, where are customers? Customers are the enemy, right? In fact, work would be great if it weren't for the people, right? But customers are not the enemy. So what we really want to do, and this is what Hunter talks about, is we need to shift that paradigm around. And this is really what servant leadership is all about. I was watching another video today, and the person said, think about it. If management's on one side and the customers are on the other side, and the employees are in the middle, and the employees are always facing the manager, which side is always facing the customers? So, we want to make sure that we're always supporting each layer, right? If the executives are supporting middle management so that they have what they need, including the answers, because a lot of times, a lot of us as middle management spend a lot of time trying to find, the answers to things. And those answers to whatever those issues are that are causing confusion and angst among the employees, when we're not able to answer those things, then people aren't doing their best work. They're wondering what's going on. So that's part of it, right? Being able to support people, giving them what they need. All right, we're going to come back to that paradigm, but first we're going to talk about this. All right, now everybody dance. You ready?
Come on,
Need
look
to be
at
dancing at home. Come on now.
you dancing, Ruby.
I
Come
can see
on.
you behind those black curtains standing.
All right, Dave.
All right, so are we really allowed to talk about love in a formal presentation? Well, we think we are. So here's the deal. My wife is Greek. Now, at this point in the presentation, we usually point out that Lisa over here,
Not his wife.
not my wife. My wife is Mrs. Newman, and she's Greek. And so over the years, 36 years I've been married, I've learned very little Greek, actually, but I know that there's 4 words for love. Sagapopole. And there's 7 words for love, actually, in the Greek language, but these 4 are the ones that we talk about quite often. And the first, philia, that's like brotherly love, like this, Philadelphia. Storge, familial love, like grandma, yaya, papu. Eros, that's the one that we probably shouldn't talk about too much at work, although I met my wife at work. So, but, Lisa and I, we teach workplace harassment and sensitivity and stuff. So be careful with Eros type of love at work. But agape, now the Greeks say agape is our love with God, right? The reason they say that is because agape really means service. And so the relationship with God is one of service, right? And of servitude. And so agape love is what we're talking about, because if we think about the things that we do, just compare it with the people in our lives. The things we do for the people in our lives that we love, right? We protect them. We protect them physically. We protect them emotionally. We provide them with what they need, food and shelter and clothing, education. We also, and this is what Lisa was pointing out earlier, we provide them with discipline and with coaching when that's what they need, right? And so it's all about service. And so can we talk about love in the workplace? We should be talking about it. People talk about hate in the workplace. So let's talk about love in the workplace. Let's bring a little love into it, right? And the right kind of love, the kind of love where we're providing for people. Do we provide physical protection for people at work? We better be. It's our job to. Do we provide emotional love? Well, emotional protection? Absolutely. We said job one now, right? Job one, people. It's all about people. Bullying in the workplace, no good. Everybody gets an equal chance to participate. Inclusivity is all about everybody feeling like this is my place, this is where I belong. And we as project managers, it's our job to help everybody feel that way. Dr. Blanchard said, I heard a little New England in that right there. I usually don't have a New England accent.
Oh, no, not at all.
I heard it right there. Anyway, intentions minus actions equals squat. That means nothing, right? I don't know if that word was okay. Squat means nothing. We can have the best intentions, but if we don't do anything, right? In fact, as Edmund Burke said, all it takes for evil to exist is for good people to do nothing. But intentions plus actions, that gives us will, the will to make something happen, right? And so the model, once we shift the paradigm around, right? The model of leadership starts to look like intention. Yes, we want to do something, and we have the will, right? We're going to be proactive. We're going to make something new happen. Do we have love, agape love? We want to serve our people. We want them to be better. We're willing to serve. We're willing to sacrifice. All of you are, because you're here. You're here at night earning PDUs and working with one another, and that is sacrifice. Authority, according to Hunter, comes from the people that we lead. So a lot of times, you know, the words authority and power get switched around. In Hunter's parlance, authority comes from the people and power comes from above. So power is like they make us a vice president. The company gives you the power of the vice president. The company can take that away. Authority comes from the people whom we lead, and that can't be taken away. If the people choose to follow us, the company won't take it away, or wouldn't be able to. You know, I mean, they could fire us, but you know, as long as you're there and people are willing to follow you, they are giving you authority. You don't get that on your own. The company can't give that to you. They could give you power, but if you're still wondering if you're a leader, right, just look behind you. So, and then that leads to leadership, which is leadership of service. And everybody in the entire organization now is watching out for everybody else instead of everybody in the organization watching out for themselves. So in order to move through the stages of learning and make servant leadership a habit, I've met people who are you would just think they are natural servant leaders. When you see them, they're just doing things that you know, like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. They just do things, and you just see them doing things, just leading the example. They don't ask people to do things.
Well, you had a story you told me actually about a festival you went to.
Yeah, well, I mentioned my wife is Greek, so we got to, my kids were the Greeks. The Greek church has something called the Oratorical Festival every year, and it's a huge deal. My kids participated in that. It was a wonderful thing. And we got to go to Detroit one year. We were out in Detroit at this huge cathedral at this Oratorical Festival. And after the speeches and everything, at night, there was a huge party. I don't know if you've ever been to a big Greek party, but you need to go to one because they're a lot of fun. And there was hundreds of people, live music, and it was a Saturday night, you know, and it was at a church, a cathedral, but outdoors in a pavilion type place.
You know my big fat Greek wedding. That's Dave's life.
It is really.
Okay.
Opa! And so, you know, this thing went on until like 12:30 in the morning, and you know, and then it was over, and everybody started dissipating. Well, you know, there were folding chairs everywhere. There's a big mess out there. And what happens is this old priest, who was probably close to 90 years old, who was going to be doing a sermon the next morning, right? he starts folding up chairs. And, so before you know it, all the guys are like, oh, Father, let me, we'll help you, right? So what does he do? He turns around, he grabs a broom, and he just starts sweeping. So somebody grabs the broom. What does he do? He starts carrying trays. And he never asked anybody to do anything. He just, and none of us even realized it. All of a sudden, we see this guy carrying chairs, and then we realize it's, it's the priest. But it just, that's just the way he was, just very, very natural. And I've met other people like that weren't priests. It's got nothing to do with the fact that of his job or his position. It's the way he was. I'm looking at my notes, the screen.
Well, there's a question, suggestions for how to normalize servant leadership in corporate. Did you want to grab that later or now?
Normalize servant leadership in corporate. So that's going to depend on what your position is within the organization, right? What Lisa and I always say is we lead from where we are. And so if I'm the project manager, and I've been in this position where I was the project manager inside an organization that did not operate by servant leadership. In other words, my bosses managed by intimidation. But I operated my team the way I thought that a team should operate. And fortunately, I worked in an organization that allowed me the autonomy. And I think that you can get some spread of that from the grassroots level through success. Obviously, the higher up you are in the organization, the more influence you're going to have over that. So to make things a habit, these are the 4 stages of habits. If you've never heard of servant leadership before tonight, and you're not a natural servant leadership, right? You might have learned a different leadership method. That's fine. Then you're at stage 1. But now you're at stage 2. Now you're conscious, right? And then you move to stage 3, which is where we're practicing. We know what it is, but we don't do it naturally, but we're going to think about it every time. Is what I'm about to do, is the assignment I'm about to work on with this person or assign this person or this task I want to delegate. Is the way I'm leading my team, helping my team to be better? Is the way I approach the team members going to influence them to become servant leaders themselves, because they're going to see how well this works and how good they feel about the workplace? And then stage 4 is we're just doing it. We don't even think about it. We just do it.
So we want to talk a little bit about our engagement matrix, and we're going to ask you another question. So get ready to type into the chat in a moment. But some of you may have seen this. This is the engagement matrix that Dave and I put together a few years ago. And the x-axis is the interest that people have for the job they do. And the y-axis is the proficiency, how good they are at their job. So we're saying if they are not interested in their job and they're not good at it, we should fire them. Give me a quick chat, yes or no. Should we fire them? Not good, not interested, boot them out of there. What do you think?
It's the door for you, baby.
We're getting a yes, maybe, no. No, 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 no. All right, we're getting all across the board, but mostly people say no. 2 or 3 chances, then let them go.
Scott laughed.
So what are we, Jack Welch? Good one, Matt. All right, so we're changing it to manage. We're going to manage them. It doesn't mean we might not manage them out of there, but we're going to manage the situation. Like Brad said, 2 or 3 chances, see what's going on. So let's talk about these quadrants for a minute. And as I talk about it, I want you to think about where most of your team is. Either the team you lead or the team you're on. Think about where most of your team is. So we have people who are not interested in their job, not very good at it. We really have to spend our time managing them. Then we have people who are interested in their job, but they're just not doing that well at it. Well, they need training. It may need the technical training. It may need some other kind, but we need to figure out how we need to train them. Then we have people who are good at their job, but aren't interested. Now, if they are not motivated, why not? And chances are something has happened that we demotivate them. And, you know, we always say that it's pretty hard to motivate people. It is so easy to demotivate people. There are so many things we can do that is demotivational to people. We have to be careful of it. Those of you who've seen us in classes or presentations before know I always, almost always, cite my favorite author and a quote, Maya Angelou. She said, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And that's the way I think of when I think of demotivational. We can do something to people, we can say something. And I'm sure you all could think of examples. Maybe when you were a child, maybe when you were in college, maybe your first job, maybe your first relationship. Somebody said something or did something to you that got to the core of who you are. And those feelings don't go away. We want to be careful that we don't do that when we're working with people. So motivation is a tough one. Now, here's the question I want to ask you all to give me an answer. If people are good at their job and they're interested in their job, we say nurture them. Why do we need to nurture them? So that's what I'd like to see. Why should we need to nurture them? To stay engaged, keep them interested, build their skills. They need support like everyone else. Here's the thing. What do we usually do with those people? I'd love for someone to tell me, what do we usually do with the people in that corner? We ignore them if we're nice. What else do we do? We ignore them. We need to help them work to their capacity. We need to promote them. We give them more work. We dump on them. They're our go-to people. They're the people we always say, oh, give it to Bob, he'll do it. Give it to Mary, she'll do it, right? These are the people that we know we can count on. So we just keep giving them more and more and more, and we don't stop and just say 2 words, thank you. Or look at the career path they want to go on or help them grow. So if you would, now that I've described these, and just so you know, Dave and I actually do a whole day on this engagement matrix. Each of these quadrants we break into mini quadrants, and then we break those into micro quadrants. So this goes down into 64 boxes. So we do, if you want to stay till 10 o'clock tonight, Matt said it's okay, we'll all hang out, but just kidding. But tell me, where do you think most of your people are? What quadrant do you think your team is in? Or the team you most recently worked with? Where do you think most people? Brad just said exactly what I've said. The managed quadrant 20 is the 20-80 rule.
Yeah.
You spend 80% of your time with 20% of your people. Where do you think most people on your team are? Which quadrant? Go ahead and let me see 69 answers right now. 69 people on the phone.
Wow.
Nurture. One manage, a couple of manages, most in nurture, some in train. Yeah, manage. All right. Well, good. So here's the thing. If you have a new team, a young team, chances are they're going to be in the manage or the train area. But when you have a team that's more developed, hopefully they'll be more in the nurture team. Now, the goal is to have most of your people in the nurture team. If you have most of your people in the managed team, you need to take a look at that and see what's going on. We tell people to take this engagement matrix, hang it up on your bulletin board, put push pins in representing the different people on your team, and then over time move the pin. Now, don't tell them which pin, of course, but then over time, go ahead and figure out where they all are and how they all fit into the bigger picture.
All right. The bulldog. So servant leadership is about serving needs, not about serving wants. And that's the other part about when Lisa was referring back to me before and saying, it's sometimes we have to take a hardline approach. In fact, we were helping a team a while ago, and we had done a lot of soft skills training. We were actually serving as an HR department for a while, and so we were seen as kind of being a little bit soft, I think, right? I would say. Anyway, after a while, one of the managers said to us that he had an underperformer, a consistent underperformer, and just couldn't pull him up. And, you know, what do we recommend? And we said, well, you know, consistent underperformance calls for going on to the, you know, progressive disciplinary system. And, you know, you need to coach and you need to mentor. And, but, you know, underperformance needs to be managed, right? We need to get up out of that lower left-hand quadrant. And he got all frustrated with me. He said, I thought you guys were the soft skill guys. You want to take a hardline approach with this? Well, here's the thing. Serving needs, not wants, right? What do we do for the people we love? When my son is now a Montgomery County firefighter, right? So he's a wild man. Now, when he was a little
Watch
kid,
out if you live in Silver Spring. That's
yeah,
what it is.
he's the guy. So, but anyway, and his wife always asks him, because he works at Silver Spring Station 1, so they do a lot of work out on the Beltway. And his wife always asks him, you know, when you guys are on the Beltway and there's a crash in like the slow lane, why do you block 2 lanes? And you know what my son's answer is? They won't let us block 3.
Dave.
Sorry, you got to keep the firefighters safe. Well, anyway.
Why were you telling that story?
Yeah, because when he was like, you know, a little kid, 3-4 years old, if we were at the Inner Harbor, like my daughter, who is a project manager now,
PMP, I'll have you know.
you know, if I would tell her, don't go to the edge of the pier at the Inner Harbor, she would stay by my side. What do you think my son would do if I told him, don't go near the edge of the pier? Right? And try to stop right at the edge, right? Which, of course, you know he wouldn't be able to do, and he'd be right in there with the jellyfish. So I wouldn't let him, right? I hold him back. And if he tried it 2 or 3 times, well, he might get a little discipline, right? Because that's what he needs at that moment. And so when our teams need discipline, I got to tell you, I know a lot of people find this hard to believe now, but when I was in high school, I ran track. And one of the races I ran was the 440, which was, you know, once around the track. Never once did I have a coach tell me, Dave, next time around, take it down a notch, just go a little bit slower, right? I mean, we're trying to help people be the best they can be. Being a team isn't enough, right? We used to talk about what's the difference between a team and a group. That's no longer where we are. We are talking about we need to have high performance teams, continuously improving, always looking to be our best, being able to count on everybody on our team doing and trying to do their best every single day. And in order to get that, in order to have a team want to operate at that level, we need to serve them. That's how it works, right? And so if it means coaching, if it means discipline, it's not a very friendly thing to do if somebody needs help to not help them. If they are underperforming and we don't help them get their performance level up, it's just going to get worse, and eventually they're going to lose their job ultimately, right? That's not serving them. And so it's serving needs, not wants. That's also what prevents us from becoming, you know, a doormat. We don't just get walked over. Servant leadership doesn't mean we just bow down and do what anybody wants. It means we serve the needs of the individuals, of the team, and of the organization. So it's not just about giving people what they want. Of course, when we talk about serving needs, we can show Maslow's hierarchy. And all we want to say about this evening is let's remember the opportunities we have as project managers during this pandemic. We normally are working with people that are working at the top levels of the pyramid. And as soon as March came along here in the United States, it was earlier in other parts of the world, but in March in the United States, all of us went to the bottom levels of the pyramid. I mean, Lisa and I, our revenue in mid-March went from, we were looking at a decent year, to zero, flat out zero. Everybody canceled and went to zero overnight. And so, and we weren't even, that worried about it. We started studying virtual training and we said, well, we'll just pick up as soon as people are ready to start doing virtual training, we'll do it, right? There are tons of people out there that don't have the same opportunities as us. We're very fortunate. And people who have far worse stresses. So let's remember that.
And health issues.
And health issues and stuff. So as project managers, we have real opportunity with regard to Maslow's hierarchy to help our people stay engaged, to check in with them, to make sure they're doing okay and to make sure they have what they need, you know, from our perspective, to be able to help them not only get their jobs done, but to be able to help them through this time.
And before we go off Maslow's hierarchy, I just want to also mention that we did do a lot of research on online training, and we have been basically sitting on Zoom since the end of March, everything from 5-day PMP exam prep to 1-hour webinars. And we've done a lot of research, and everything comes back and says you need to be more engaged with your teams, not less. And that doesn't mean calling them, you know, if they're working from home, it doesn't mean calling them every few minutes to see what they're working on and what's going on, but really see how they're doing. And what's that you always say? Don't act like you care, really care, right?
Yeah.
People say, well, you need to act like you care. No, you don't need to act like you care.
Yeah, don't act.
You need to care. So it's more of a call of, how are you doing? How's your family? How are you doing with your kids at home? And, you know, we recommend to most of our clients, and we've done a lot of training on how to convert your organization to online. Have regular meetings, put your cameras on. In fact, we have a class tomorrow with 25 people, all PhD scientists, Scott Chen type people.
Oh no, not them.
And, you know, we've told them they all have to have their cameras on the entire time. For 8 hours, you need to sit there with the cameras on because you need to really engage people. And when we were doing a class for PMI Seminars World a couple of weeks ago, one of our students said, you know, I like online training actually better than in person, because online you see everybody's face. Whereas if you're in a classroom, you only see the back of people's heads, right? So there are advantages, and you need to bring up the advantages and make those advantages work to the betterment of everybody. So we really feel that, you know, we've been able to do that. We do, when we teach a class, this is obviously just a 1-hour session, but to Matt's question, when we teach classes, we are doing things like getting up and dancing. We are doing breakout rooms constantly. We have tons of activities where we send people into breakout rooms to work with one another on teams. They come back, they do presentations. It is not us lecturing for 8 hours. We could never do that. We wouldn't do it.
I could do it.
I mean, even as you see here today, we're asking questions, even though we're just 1 hour. So it is, I'll tell you what, it is, to answer your question, Matt, as an instructor, believe it or not, it's harder to teach online than it is in person. Because online, you're always looking at us. If you're in person, we could turn our back on you for a moment or walk out of the room. So there's a definite challenge to the online. So make sure, though, that you keep engaged with your team. And that's the most important thing to do. That's the most important thing. Don't let them be out there in cyberspace and you don't check in on them. They need that connectivity. All right, so we're going to give you a few statistics here as we wind down a little bit. So there's some studies we want to share with you. One of them regarding building a team community. Gallup did a study, and it found that employees who feel they get to use their best strengths and abilities at work are 15% less likely to quit their job. That's pretty, you know, logical. Of course, that makes sense, right? 30% of employees would consider quitting if they're unhappy at work, and 79% said their bosses don't care about their happiness. Isn't that astounding? Now, those of you who know us know that Dave and I talk about happiness in the workplace all the time. It's critical that we are infusing happiness, imparting happiness in the workplace. We spend a lot of time there. We need to make sure that people are happy. 79% said they don't think their bosses care about their happiness. And 76% of employees who don't feel valued at work are seeking other opportunities. So here's the thing that we want to share about those statistics. You know, really, when you look at these numbers and you look at this information, a good leader, sorry, I was just Trying to answer the chat here. Okay, hang on one second. Sorry, Dave, give me half a second here.
Lisa's multitasking.
Well, I was looking at the chat too. Yeah, so a good leader really knows that every member of their team brings a unique talent and aspect to the group. It's not one size fits all. We can't say, we're going to do the same thing with everybody. Employees work together, they complement one another's skills, but we get things done differently. A leader has to be aware of challenges their teams are facing. We know that personalities don't always mesh, and we need to be prepared to step in and work through those situations. So do what you can to engage with people, even though they're not in your face every day. And maybe you have a set time. For example, Dave and I, when we aren't teaching, which is most days we are teaching now, thank goodness, but the days we're not teaching, at 7 a.m., Dave and I will log into Zoom and we'll have a conversation. What's going on? What are you working on today? Do you need anything from me? All those kinds of things. And then at the end of the day, we do it again, 5, 6 o'clock when we wrap up at the end of the day, we Zoom again. Now, here's something else. When we used to work in person all the time, if we were in the office, we would have lunch together and we'd play backgammon over lunch. Well, you know what? We still do that. We do it online. There's online backgammon. So you can still do some of
She
those
still
things.
wins.
Yeah, we found the game that I win all the time. But no, there's things you can still do. And we are not going to diminish the severity of what's going on in the world with people's health, with people's businesses, with people's families. It's very difficult. And you know what? There's 70 people on this call. I'm sure that there are a lot of people on this call who are going through a lot of challenges, and you don't know what challenges other people are going through. So just don't assume that everything's okay with everybody, and do what you can to help people or try and look at the positive. And I know, we're trying to look at some of the positives of online teaching and share some of that. I'll tell you another positive. I haven't had to buy new shoes in 9 months. So, I mean, there's things that, dry cleaners, we don't.
My wife does not see that as a positive.
What? Oh, because she wants shoes.
She wants new shoes.
But think about it. I mean, there are positives of online training, right? We don't have to buy new shoes. We don't have to go to the airport,
In fact, I don't think it stopped them.
She's still buying shoes. I know your neighbors are probably like, why is she walking around all the time with those shoes on? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Eleanor Roosevelt. So she said, it's not fair to ask of others what you yourself are not willing to do. And that really does sum up what we can say about servant leadership. There are many qualities and characteristics that define a servant leader: good listening, empathy, power of persuasion, good communication skills. There's just so many different things. A servant leader may develop or follow different leadership styles, but they all have to possess these main qualities and characteristics in order to become a great servant leader. And Dave mentioned early on, the different generations in the workplace. And Dave and I spend a lot of our time studying generations in the workplace and the different characteristics of the different generations. One of the things you'll never hear us do is bash any of the generations, because every generation brings something valuable to the workplace. And when we started our company 11 years ago, the people that were calling us most were baby boomers, like Dave and I. We're both baby boomers.
Yep, I was born in 56.
I wasn't. Anyway, we were getting calls from baby boomers, and they were saying mostly, what do I do with these younger people? How do I manage them? I don't know how to deal with them. Well, here it is, 11 years later. For the past 3 or 4 years, who do you think we're getting the calls from? The Gen Y. And why are they calling us? How do I get rid of those old people? They won't retire. What do I do? Well, that is so true, right? But you know what? The advice we give to everybody is see the good that there is in everybody. People who are older, who have been in the workplace for a long time, who have been doing something for quite a while, they have that historical knowledge that can't be replaced. Tap into that. Younger people are excellent at technology. They have good, fresh ideas. Tap into that. You know, as James C. Hunter said, the best and the brightest, they will go somewhere else. So a lot of younger people are do have a reputation for, and this is a statistic I'm just going to share, not staying at jobs very long because that loyalty to a company is not there the way it was 20, 30 years ago on either side. Let me say on either side. So employers are not as loyal to employees like they used to be, and vice versa. Years ago, you went and worked for, IBM and you were there your entire life. It's not the case anymore. And we know a lot of big companies who actually terminate employees as they approach that retirement stage. So it is important for us all to make sure that we're doing what we can to make it the best type of workplace for everybody. And you know what? If you have happy employees, it's going to make it a lot better for you. It absolutely will. So, we always end this presentation with saying, treat others the way you want to be treated. Well, there's a lot of variations on that, and people have said it different ways. Did you want to say something, Dave? There are so many different type of leaders. Each one has a leaders. That was very New York.
Very
Where'd
New
that
York.
come from?
Wow, what's up with you? Hey,
It must be me talking to Ruby.
yeah.
Anyway,
Going
anyway, they each.
New York was showing there.
I
Ruby.
know.
Now who?
New York.
Oh, New York was showing. Okay, you make me sit up here.
Many leaders blend different styles together. So we're not telling you to be one kind of leader or another's. Treat others the way they want to be treated. Yeah, that's what I was saying. A lot of people say that's treat others the way they want to be treated. And
There's a reason, though. That's what you were asking me if I wanted to say. There's a reason we don't quote the golden rule. There's a reason we say it this way. Because people don't always want to be coached or disciplined. So it isn't all about treating them the way they want to be treated. It's all about serving the needs of the organization.
Yeah. So with that, first of all, of course, if you have any questions, while we entertain questions, we're just going to let you know that we are doing a big old holiday sale in our way of trying to give back to everybody for ending 2020 for 2020, where we have 4 classes. If you sign up by the end of the year, it's only 120 for 8 PDUs. So, and the 4th one is a brand new one we just wrote called the Project Management Evolution, which is all about what's going on out there in the workplace. We also have PMP exam prep, the new exam we're teaching to. We have a week next week, and then we're doing it again at the end of January for 5 days. So, we hope you'll consider joining us. We have a lot of people signing up and taking advantage of this sale. So please, if you are available, join us for one of these. But let's go ahead and get some questions. I think we have a few minutes, and you haven't earned your hour PDU yet. So
Yeah.
any questions?
Well,
Anybody else?
2 minutes to go.
Anybody have any questions? When will you be able to learn more about the PMP version 7 classes? So, oh boy, someone just put a dissertation in there. Okay. Let me answer the one about, there is no version 7 PMBOK coming out yet. The exam that is going to be changing on January 2nd is still based on PMBOK 6. However, this is the book that's being used, and authorized training partners, which Matt mentioned, Dave and I are, we get all of our material now from PMI. PMI writes the classes, they develop the material, and everything comes from them. So that's what we're teaching. There is no announcement yet as to when PMBOK 7 will come out. So for now, everything is still PMBOK 6. The material that Dave and I now have as ATPs is the new material. It's the new practice exams. We have all of that. So if you join us for our class, you get You get that workbook, electronically and hard copy if you want. You get, oh my gosh, a couple of hundred practice questions. You get a dozen videos, links to all kinds of worksheets and problems. So very concise. The material PMI put together is absolutely amazing. So if you are going to take your PMP exam prep, make sure you take it from an ATP who has PMI's material, because if they're not an ATP, they don't know what's going to be on the exam. So we're happy to answer any other questions or talk to you about it if you want to talk further. Okay, Brad, long question. I'd like your comments of the following disciplinary model. Provide a temporary situation in which the troublemaker underperformer has the role of a servant leader, guest trainer to help retain peers in case of an unwanted event, lost product, lost. Dave, are you reading this?
Yeah.
For example, that person will present a 1-point lesson which illustrates what went wrong and what the approved response would have been for pharmaceutical areas in which my thought is greater chance of lasting success. Okay, Dave, you could answer that.
What's the question? Oh, yeah. Oh, I get it. I love that. Yeah. You're saying that if somebody underperforms in an area, have them study it and then present it back to everybody else the way it should be done. You know, hopefully pointing out what they did wrong, right? That person would have to be mighty humble to be able to do that, but I would hope that they could. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, it's a wonderful way. You know, part of servant leadership, when I was running Scrum teams, I would never ask the 3 questions myself, right? Just let the team ask their questions. So, and even before I ever knew what Agile was, when I was just managing the mechanical engineering department, I used to ask people, we used to have staff meetings once a week back then. That was kind of the common paradigm back in the day. And I used to ask everybody, and I would take a turn myself. My teams were usually around 7 to 10 people. So your turn would come up once every couple of months or so to run the staff meeting. Running the staff meeting would be to present some lesson. So we were a group of mechanical engineers. So somebody would talk about how to design something, you know, or some new plastic material available, or whatever it was that pertained to our job, how to do a tolerance analysis. But yeah, I think that's a great method is having people become the leaders themselves. Share the power, share the power. You know, I loved it before when somebody said, what power? Project managers have no power. But we do have power. We have the power, the authority that's given to us by the people, and that's the power that we can share.
Dave, what's the best way to be a servant leader to the I got it all going on millennial?
Well, we will disregard the generational part of that, but there are know-it-alls in every generation. Certainly, I've been on the earth for 65 years, right? And there's certainly know-it-alls that are my age. So how do we become servant leaders? Well, servant leader is serving needs, right? And so one of my very first experiences as a project manager, one of the guys I went in there and I gave my very exciting, energizing kickoff speech, and one of the guys in the room said, well, Newman, I don't need to be managed. And I was like, well, that's awesome, because I'm not here to manage you. I'm here to manage the project, right? That means I'm here to help you. So if you don't need my help, then great, you know? And of course, it wasn't long before you needed the help of somebody, you know, sort of like the mouse and the lion, right? With, you know, this guy is this great, smart, super awesome team member who has skills that I do not possess. That's good. I'm glad I have people on my team that have skills I don't possess. That's why we have a team, right? So what is it that you're going to need? That's going to be my job. Our ability to be good servant leaders requires a lot of effort and attention, because especially for those of us like me that came from a different management paradigm, because we were used to managing teams. And now in today's paradigm, I no longer manage a team. The team manages itself. I serve the team. And it's a completely different paradigm. And in order to serve the team, I need to nurture relationships outside of the team, right? I need to clear the way. I need to make sure that I'm doing things that are really working with my colleagues and other project managers and people outside the company to facilitate the team, meaning give them the time that they need to work on the project work.
All right, any other questions? Brad just said allow them to demonstrate servant leadership if they cannot, then maybe out. All right, anyone else? Dave, if you'd go to the next slide, I think we've worn this one out now.
Good one, slide.
I just want to always mention that you are more than welcome to contact us at any time. If we can answer any questions, we suggest that for the most part, you know, an email works best because we're usually in front of a classroom. But we're always happy to talk if you want to ask anything about this presentation or how to deal with your teams or anything else in the world of project management. We love to talk about it. As you may be able to tell, Dave and I are just so passionate about what we do. So we never mind talking about it. Someone joked one day and said, when you guys go out to lunch, what do you talk about? And we're like, schedules, budgets, you know, things like that. So don't hesitate to reach out. We're more than happy to help. If we can help you with any of your career paths, there's a lot going on now in the world of disciplined agile. Dave is, as you could see, a DASM, Disciplined Agile Scrum Master. That's a new certification from PMI. He's also an ACP, and like Matt said, he's got a few letters after his name and working on several more. But I let him do that while I run the business, so it works out very, very well, and I appreciate
Trying to
it.
get her to pay for a PhD, but she's not going for it.
But yeah, we're happy to talk about what's going on with PMI. You know, go back 1 second, Dave, if you would. As I mentioned, we just wrote a new course called, it's the 4th one down there, the Project Management Evolution, which is a whole day talking about what's going on in the world of PMI. So if you want to get in on that one, sign up at the end of the year. And we're happy to tell you all about what's, you know, we live and breathe PMI all the time. So we could tell you what's going on with all the different certifications and just the industry, the project economy. I'm going to mention one thing real quick in wrapping up. The PMBOK is all about the 10 knowledge areas and the 5 process groups. This book is focused on 3 areas: people, process, and the business environment. People is 42% of the exam. Process is 50%, and the business environment is 8%. People, process, and the business environment. What a change from where it's been before. So big things going
And the
on.
whole thing is 50% agile.
50% agile. Big changes going on in the world of PMI, and we're happy to talk about it. So join us for that class if you want, or just shoot us an email. We're happy to answer any questions. Matt, you want to take it over? Any parting words?
Thank you guys for such a great presentation. We're always fortunate, and it's a privilege to have you as our presenters. This will be posted on our YouTube channel tomorrow. So if you think that anyone on your staff or friends or family will get something out of it, please share it with them. If we don't see you before January 6th, we'll see everyone on January 6th, and have a happy and safe holiday.
And we want to say thank you, Matt and Ruby and Scott and Raj, the whole team there, for Gene, everyone putting this together and always being there for the members. That's what you all do best. I think everyone needs to be super safe and take care of yourselves.
Bye, everybody. Happy holidays.
I'll be in touch, Lisa and Dave. I'll be in touch with you guys.
All right,
Excellent,
take
Ruby.
care.
Okay.
Yeah. You bet. You bet.
Bye.
Lisa, Dave, awesome as usual. Have a happy holiday.
Thanks, Gene.
Thanks, Gene.
You be well.
You as well. Take care.
Okie doke. Check to see if I missed it. All right.